Andy Staples, great college football writer from Sports Illustrated. He joins us now. Let me start with the poll question, Andy. Who's number 2?
Texas A&M.
Whoa. Pretty quick answer.
Would you have rather seen a Texas A&M Alabama rematch in that game last night, knowing what you know now?
Well, let's say I didn't know that. Would you still would have wanted that over Notre Dame? Let's be fair to
No, and that's the thing. People are not being fair to Notre Dame's season. They had a bad night. They are not a bad team.
Well, if they got the first 2 calls, Alabama was still the better team. But if they get the first 2 calls, Eifert's catch, the fumble, the muff on the punt, does it change anything in this game other than the final score?
No, because when you're dominated at the line of scrimmage the way they are, or the way they were, it doesn't matter if you get calls, if you don't get calls. The end result is going to be the same because the other team's just going to impose its will on you. And, if you score first, they're still going to just go right back down and score. You have to make a stop at some point, and Notre Dame could not stop Alabama's offensive line and running game.
All right, so A&M is number 2. Where's Ohio State on that list, and where's Notre Dame?
I turned in my final AP ballot last night. I had Notre Dame 3. You've got to reward the 12-0 season. I mean, it's a body of work thing. It's not they just lost last night. And I believe I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I had Ohio State either 5th or 6th. And the thing about Ohio State for me is they just didn't play anybody. So I don't really know how good they are. I know they won by the skin of their teeth against some of those teams that weren't all that great. But, you don't know whether you get them in a situation as a team like Alabama, how they do. But I got a pretty good idea that Alabama would have rolled over Ohio State. And I think Urban Meyer would probably tell you the same thing.
Okay, you're rewarding Notre Dame for a great regular season. I don't think that's how you should look at the final polls. I think you have to be fair to Notre Dame and some of these other teams. Notre Dame played in the national title game. But do you really believe Notre Dame is the 3rd best team in the country?
On a given day, yeah. Because last night was not indicative of what they were like all season. You got to remember that you got to get their baseline performance what you think that's going to be. So, I think they could have beaten most of those other teams.
Was this a good year for Notre Dame?
This is a great year for Notre Dame. You remember, this time last year, we didn't think they were going to be in the top 25. Nobody thought they would come anywhere near the national title game. People thought they would never, ever get to that point again. So to go 12-0, to get to the national title game is a huge step for that program. And they're bringing back most everybody. They lose Teo, they lose some of the other guys, but they bring back a lot of the really good players on that team, and they can get there again, or at least have another really, really good season.
He's Andy Staples from Sports Illustrated, covers college football, is at the national title game, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. But I look at Alabama. What's Alabama bringing back, and what are they bringing in? And if I said you can have Alabama now or the field next year,
Alabama. Because if you look at Alabama's schedule next year, if they can beat Texas A&M in College Station on the 14th,
oh boy,
they're rolling. I mean, they got a good draw. They get Tennessee and Kentucky out of the SEC East. They bring back a ton of good players. I mean, C.J. Mosley, who was the best linebacker on the field last night, has already said he's coming back. That's a huge get right there. A.J. McCarron's coming back. T.J. Yeldon and Amari Cooper have to be in college for 2 more years. That's a that's a team that's going to go. Now they're going to have to adjust because they're probably going to be replacing 3 offensive linemen. That's not easy. But remember, there's a bunch of 5-stars that have been waiting in the wings for Barrett Jones and Chance Warmack to graduate.
Chip Kelly's decision to go back to Oregon. If you're an NFL team, are you going to take another shot at Chip Kelly anytime soon?
Depends. Do you want to win?
I mean, well, but from what I was told, he had the Browns job and then went to the Philadelphia Eagles, spent 8 hours there, and then he had that job too. Wasn't interested in Buffalo. So what was it about these jobs that would make him go back to Oregon when it seemed like he had both feet out the door?
Maybe he decided those franchises were not committed correctly to winning. He knows Oregon is. He knows he's going to win 10, 11, 12 games a year at Oregon. So unless he had the perfect situation, I don't blame him one bit for going back to Oregon, taking a bunch of money to win a ton of games.
Why did Bill O'Brien interview with these NFL teams and then say he was not a one-and-done guy at Penn State?
Because you always have to listen.
No, you don't.
Sure.
You don't. No, you don't. No, you don't.
And remember, Bill O'Brien did not put Penn State in that situation. Bill O'Brien,
I agree,
pulled them out of that situation as well as he could. And when he got hired, he was told, we got to go through this process with the Committee on Infractions. We don't know what the sanctions will be, but we didn't really actually break any NCAA rules. So he had no idea what he was walking into. And so the fact that he handled the situation as best he could, and maybe it wasn't what he thought it was going to be, yeah, you got to listen if somebody comes and wants to talk to you about a job. I mean, he's been in the NFL. If it's a dream of his at some point to be a head coach in the NFL, you at least have to listen to those people.
Yeah, but then don't say you're not a one-and-done guy.
Well, he's not.
But he would have been. From what I was told, he dominated the Philadelphia interview. He was awesome, but they waited for Chip Kelly, and he wanted to have an answer. But I was told that he was awesome in the Philadelphia interview, and then he's going back to Penn State.
Well, you say you're not a one-and-done guy when you aren't, and he's not. I mean, he
not till this year or next year.
Well, then he'd be 2-and-done.
Yes, then he's 2-and-done. Then he wouldn't be one. Okay, more of a first-round pick eventually. A.J. McCarron or his girlfriend.
Equal. I mean, I wrote a story about A.J. McCarron that came out on SI.com last Monday, and the first tweet I got back after I tweeted it out is, he's not special. He just has a lot of talent around him. You think that guy didn't look special last night?
Do you think that he is the leading candidate for the Heisman Trophy going into next season, even though you have Johnny Football? But you have McCarron, who put up, 30-3 touchdown to interceptions, national championship, and coming back? Does he have a better chance of winning than Johnny Football does?
Well, I think you have a better chance of winning than Johnny Football does, just because of the way we work in the media these days. If you win the Heisman, you're probably not going to win it again the next year, because people are just going to be looking for any reason they can find to tear you down.
But here's one for you. If you had A.J. McCarron putting up his numbers at Notre Dame.
Oh, good Lord. They would give him 2 Heisman.
He'd get the Ron Paulus treatment. He would get two Heisman trophies.
In the same year. Yeah. But, hey, let's not forget Jadeveon Clowney's back in college football next year.
I know. You're right.
And, I think I've actually been very impressed by the Heisman electorate in the past few years. I really think we're getting more diverse and realizing that there are other players on the field besides the quarterbacks and the running backs. The next year may be the year a guy like Jadeveon Clowney can win it. I don't know that he's going to, because, once again, we're already talking about him, and it seems like if we're already talking about you, you're not going to win the Heisman. You have to come out of nowhere. Yeah,
you've peaked too early if we're talking about you now. That's part of the problem. That's what happened to Geno Smith at West Virginia. You start to peak in October, that's way too early. Here's one thing to keep an eye on. From what I'm told, USC's trying to get a defensive coordinator, and everybody that they've talked to has said no because they view it as a one-year deal, that they think that if they go in, that Lane Kiffin only has one more year left. What do you think?
Well, I think if you look at how the other coaches treated the job search or the job market this year, I think that's really an accurate description, because James Franklin went back to Vanderbilt. Charlie Strong went back to Louisville. I think a lot of these really good coaches push their chips in on some big jobs being open next year, USC being one of them and Texas being the other one.
Good stuff. Hey, I know you're low on sleep there, Andy. We appreciate you getting up early with us.
All right, thanks, Dan.
All right, buddy. Andy Staples, college football writer.